Hi, my name is Kate Fletcher. I'm a missionary from Africa. At the time of my husband's death in 2001, I was not quite sure what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. But I knew that they were predicting 20 million orphans from the AIDS pandemic in sub-Saharan Africa. And I thought, if I can help, I should help. So I went on Google in 2002 and said, volunteer AIDS orphan Africa. And I was praying all this time, so when the answer came up to me from Google, I took that as the answer to a prayer. I received 8 pages of colorful information on Nyumbani Children's Home, a home started by a gentleman who was a professor at Georgetown University in the early 90s when hospitals didn't know what to do with AIDS-infected children. So he started an orphanage. And when I wrote to the site, they said, sure, come. So at the ripe old age, I decided that I was going to go over and see what I could do to help. So I helped in that orphanage for 2 years. Then I realized and learned that 80% of the children who are born to positively infected mothers, when their own long bones started generating antibodies and antigens, they became negative by the 12th and 18th month of life. But there were no orphanages that I knew of that were helping those kinds of kids. And on the African continent, women and girls are viewed for their natural ability to bear children, and that's all that is expected of them. So when money is scarce, the boy children who have to head households are sent to school, and the girls are told to carry water and carry wood and learn how to be domesticated persons who can raise a family. So I thought, if Wangari Maathai, the Nobel Prize winner of 2004, a Kenyan woman, if somebody hadn't taken a chance on her and sent her to primary school, high school, university, she wouldn't have become the first PhD from East Africa, and she wouldn't have been able to make the difference in Kenya and in the whole world that she has made with her green movement and her protecting women and children kinds of things. With $30,000 and a 501c3 that we got in 2 months, we began Hakima Place. Now, I call it Hakima Place because I didn't want to call it an orphanage. I didn't want to call it a home for girls. So Hakima in Kiswahili means wisdom, and that's what we're about. We're about educating the girls as far as they can go, up through high school, all the way up through university if they can do it, where they can make a difference for Kenya and they can make a difference for the world. So where did I get the children from? Word of mouth went around that a Mzungu, which is a white person, is starting a children's home. So people came to the gate, they called on the phone. Anybody who knew somebody with some orphan children, either from the slums or from grandmothers who lived up country. Up country is where 80% of Kenya lives, which is to say not in the metropolitan area, of which there are a few, but Nairobi, the capital city, is the biggest. So here I am renting this place in 2005, and the first 10 girls come by word of mouth. They're all orphans. Some have a daddy, but the daddy has abandoned. And so we start off with them in whatever grade they're in the little school across the street. Then we start asking people to big sister them or to sponsor them. And I continue to come back to the U.S. and raise funds through the churches. So as time went on, we gradually received enough money to buy some land. So we had the great blessing of buying land in 2009, 20 miles farther away. So now we're really on the edge of the Rift Valley. Now we're in the rural area ourselves, in Maasai country, where most of the people will be pastoralists, where many of the girls are married at age 9 to men who might be 49. Too soon pregnant, too soon infected, and too soon dead. We can have a generation of women who will respect themselves, who will know what they believe, who will stick to their own principles, who will choose a career where they can make a difference, and they'll just fly, and Kenya will be better, and the world will be better, because Kenya is very young. 40 million people in Kenya. 52% of them are under the age of 25. That's an awful lot of youth. We should grab it before we lose all those brains. So many bright children. Sometimes I think, how did I get all the bright children in Kenya? How did they all come to our door? But I think every child would be bright if they were fed physically and emotionally and socially, and they felt safe and they belonged, and they were encouraged that there's nothing you can't do if you have a mind to do it. My thought with Hakima Place is that rather than be seen as objects of production, rather as being seen as property of a gentleman who marries a fertile girl so that she can give him many sons, I think women will come into their own rights. The idea of Hakima Place is to make it as familial as it can be. When the little ones play family, there's a mommy, there's an auntie, there's a teacher, somebody's a baby, and there's other children. There's never a daddy in the family. That's a sad reality over there. There's never a daddy in the family, and that's the way they play it. Hakima Place is different, I think, from other organizations or other orphanages in that it functions like a boarding school, which is to say the children are not taken away from their families of origin. Africa is nothing if it's not familial. Africa is about family, clan, tribe, nation, and that's very ingrained, and people live that way. It's said that every Kenyan who has a job is supporting 13 others in the family who doesn't have a job. So when my children come to me from their family member who brings them, I pledge them to do two things: to love them and support them socially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, while I have them during the 9 months of school. And they contract with me to take them home during the school holiday time. So in the sense, those who take in orphans into bigger institutions and who keep them completely, as orphanages used to do here in the States and are still doing in Kenya, they have a terrible time when the children graduate from high school, reintegrating them into society and reintegrating them into their family. But I thought the boarding school model would work better because we never disintegrate them. So the families are in to see them 6 times a year on Family Day, and the children are home 6 weeks a year in the school terms when they're not getting extra tuition, extra schooling. The children are home, so they get very excited. I got the boarding school notion from a child. A 7th grader was saying to her uncle, "Uncle, I'm in boarding school now." And I thought, that's a good way to think about it, because that doesn't disengage you from the family from which you came. On the other hand, when I was a child, I lived in an orphanage, and there were 2 sisters who took care of 95 little kids, and nobody ever touched us. There wasn't any hugging, there wasn't any, of course in this culture you can't do that anymore. But a child needs that. I mean, I taught my children how to hug, and I would hug them goodnight, because nobody ever hugged them before. That's another rotten thing about poverty. There's no time to be emotional. It's not that they don't love their children, it's that they struggle the whole day to find supper. So hugging is not part of what happens. One of my staff members said, "The first time I was ever hugged, Mom Kate hugged me." Now this is an adult woman of 38 years. So the whole, the ambiance, I guess you could say, at Hakima Place is to be a loving family. Now, are we an institution? Yes. Are there 60 children being cared for by 6 house mothers? Yes. I think I learned that if you don't have a child long enough, love them enough, have structure, put around the structure a lot of love, put around that discipline and faith and human communication where they can see. I'm very choosy with my employees. I want them to see hardworking, faithful women and hardworking, faithful men, because they've not seen it at home. On Sunday night, sometimes we have little, what we call pamoja, where the children talk and we discuss how can we make our life better in these little houses. We're trying to live in family groupings. The children call each other sister. They call all the adult women mom, and they call all the adult men who work on the property uncle. Uncle Victor, Uncle Vincent, whoever it might be. I'm pretty amazed that the children speak as well as they do. Everybody starts out with a tribal tongue. There are 42 tribes in Kenya, so they all start out, up until they start grade 1 in school, knowing either Luya or Luyu or Kikuyu or whatever the tribe is, Then in school, they're required to learn Swahili and English. One is the official language, one is the national language. So Swahili and English are taught for 12 years as a teachable, testable subject. So we have a rule that we will always speak in English. But my thought is when you're raising an orphan child, you ought to be respectful to whatever their parents were. So I don't think I should bring them all in and make them Catholic simply because I'm Catholic. That has nothing to do with the children. So what we do with them is we're very divided on Sunday morning. The bus goes to the Catholic church. The van goes to the Deliverance Church for the Pentecostal type prayers. And the small car goes to the Anglican church. There's a Presbyterian church right down the street from us. There's a temple in town, and there are mosques in town. And the day those kinds of children come to me, we will find a way to get them to the church of their parents. So from the 10 that started in 2005, we now have 62 children. The eldest is in university. She's going to be a senior in the School of Business. There are 5 in high school. Then there will be 10, then there will be 20, and it just goes on and on. We have 2 youngsters that are still at home. A tiny baby who was left at a garden gate by a mommy who was hopeless and helpless and prayed for a good Samaritan to pick the baby, and the baby was brought to us from the police. And that's the best thing that could happen to that little girl, because we'll see her through university, and then she'll be on to be able to do something good for Kenya. In 2010, when we were blessed to have wonderful, generous donors to come to our assistance and help us build Hakima Village, if you will, the central dining room with the 6 little cottages around. From there, when the children finish high school, they will leave us because we don't want them separated forever. I mean, this is a golden chance, but it's like living in a dream world next to what they go home to. I want this to be a Kenyan ministry to Kenyans. So everybody on the staff but me is a Kenyan. So my assistant has only a little bit of more time, and she will have a degree in leadership and management. And then I hope to back off and maybe jump to the States or to Italy or to the UK and do more fundraising as we grow. We don't intend ever to be big. We intend always to be familial. If somebody wanted to help, there are a couple of things that could happen. Some people send us school fees, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, however it works, so that we can send the kids to private school. That's first. The reason for that is they'll have 25 or 30 kids in a classroom instead of 60 or 70. The public schools are hugely crowded. And there is an AIDS funeral going on for the faculty. Every month somebody's gone because somebody in their family has died of AIDS, still yet. So school fees is a big item. And the more they get into high school and university, the more school fees is going to be an item. Some people wish to be in relationship with the child. And when they're in relationship with the child, then they're not only sending school fees, they're writing to the child on a monthly basis. And they're sending a birthday present or a Christmas present. So that is also the role of the big sister. The big sister is a non-monetary thing. That's a mentoring, and because we don't have computers, it can't be email. But people on this side who don't have time to handwrite a letter can email something. It comes to my computer, I print it, fold it, and put it on the child's bed. So they get the letter, they get it typed in that fashion. But what they get to learn from that is how the postal system works, how to address an envelope on there, what stamps look like. They never knew any of that before because they never had occasion. They're learning world geography because they can write to somebody in England or France or US or Canada, wherever it may be. So that's the second thing. I think there's generous people all over the world. I think they don't know how to help. And when someone comes and says, I promise you, all the 100 pennies of your dollar will go straight to the children, they're glad to find it, you know? But the whole point of Hakima Place is that they should do well in school so that they can do well in life. Choices, it's about choices. My hope is that we can love them enough, feed them enough emotionally and spiritually, that they can grow up whole no matter what has happened to them. A lot of them have been abused before they came to us, and I think they can be put back together. I think with faith and love, and we live a structured life, and things are calm and they feel safe. You know, what children in this country normally get and take for granted is a great gift there. And I think our kids are going to do us proud in the end. I think they're going to fly.